Welcome to Bet the Edge, powered by PointsBet on the NBC Sports EDGE YouTube channel. I'm your host, Sara Perlman, and as always, I am joined by Drew Dinsick. And today is the first of a three-part series of Bet the Edge. That's right, we are rolling out a three-part series counting down to the NFL training camp. And today, Super Bowl champion quarterback Shaun, as well as CBS Sports' Brinson, will join us to discuss which teams they believe are worth buying now to get ahead on the market. So super exciting. That's all coming up here throughout the next couple of weeks on Bet the Edge. But before we get to that, Drew, 4th of July weekend, 4th of July yesterday. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was amazing. We missed you here in California, obviously. Hopefully you get a chance to come out to the best coasts at some point this summer. But we had outstanding weather. Just a joy being at the beach. So no complaints from me. Watched a lot of tennis. Nick Kyrgios, Stefanos Tsitsipas put on a show for us this week.
Phenomenal.
But really, the show was stolen by Miss Ons Jabeur, who moves on to the quarterfinals today. She's taking on Buzkova. We are feeling cautiously optimistic that she punches her ticket to a semifinal. And I'll tell you what, everybody else getting out of her way. This feels like our Tunisian princess is going to take home her first ever slam title here this weekend. I'm very, very excited for these next three matches, starting off with today, where I think I make her about a minus 400 favorite to move through to semifinals.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to ask what you would make her for today as we anxiously await for her match. Iga out, not that she was probably the biggest competitor, just because you talked about more of a clay court than grass court player with Iga. So yes, rooting for Ons Jabeur. I have been following her ridiculously throughout Wimbledon because of you. I know we have big bets on her. So that's exciting. And in terms of 4th of July, it's in Maryland, not in California, not on the West Coast like you. I cannot wait. I am going out there this month, so I'm excited. So hopefully you and I will get together in person. But yes, sports betting wise, besides Ons Jabeur, I'm just going to say I am ice cold right now. I don't even mind admitting that. Like, I really hope today is a bounce back spot outside of a Wimbledon bets that you've given me, because your girl needs help. But luckily, in a little bit, we will start talking about the NFL. And I am fired up about that, because that is definitely my strength. And we're going to get to a lot of NFL insight in just a little bit on this three-part series. But any other notes before we jump into this for Wimbledon for today?
Well, it's the dog days of summer. Hopefully you got all your winning bets in at the hot dog eating contest yesterday. Unders just
I told you
cruising.
I don't bet the hot dog. I told you that.
It was that was a mess. But no, I have I'm rooting against Scam Nori right now. I'm rooting I don't have a rooting interest in Djokovic Sinner, although it would be wild to see Sinner pull off the upset. It looks like Djokovic has got control of this match now. So other than that, I have an edge of the day in tennis, but I think everything else is pretty fairly priced.
Okay, so we'll wait till the end of the episode to hear where you're going for tennis. Hey, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands by predicting what will happen in Major League Baseball, on the PGA Tour, and NASCAR circuit. We also have a special contest on Tuesday and Thursday called Battle of the Bets, where you can agree or disagree with our experts for a shot to win some cash. That's today. Be sure to check that out on the NBC.
I wonder who it is. Oh, it's me versus.
Are you on?
Yeah, today. Yeah.
Okay.
I have 3 baseball plays, so they're going to be sharp.
Maybe I fade the experts today. No, I'm kidding. Let me see what they are.
Experts.
Dog days of summer, maybe I'll tell you more after baseball. It is hard to win in baseball. It's okay. I'll see what your plays are and then maybe get involved in Taylor fade on the NBC Sports Predictor app, now that I know you're on it. Okay, it's time to talk NFL. I teed it up. We're really excited. No longer a tease. We have Shaun joining us now. And the theme really of this episodic, shows we're doing here on Bet the Edge are going to be different angles to attack the NFL. And today we're talking about buy low now teams that we think have value right now before they get into training camp and beginning of the season. So, Shaun, I'll start with the Las Vegas Raiders with the AFC. We're going to head into the AFC first here. And this is a team I know that you're in on. You like the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know if it's because you live there or obviously you like the addition of Devontae Adams and what have you. So let's begin with the Las Vegas Raiders. Their win total 8.5. They're plus 650 to win the division. What you make of this team and why we should buy in on them now?
Well, listen, Sara, before we get into that, people call me a lot of things, but for you, I'm going to be Dr. King. I have a cure for your illness. Your boy has been hot as fish grease ever since I picked St. Peter's outright to beat Purdue in March Madness. I've been hot. I'm
Bringing
so
this
hot.
energy over
Hey,
here,
listen,
Shaun.
I was so hot in hockey, they named me Puckstradamus. I'm so hot in baseball, my new name is Big Stickadamus. I'm just telling you, holler at your boy, shoot me a DM, hit me up on Twitter, shoot me a text. I got you. We'll get you out of this slump.
Yeah, I've never needed to hear that more in my life, Shaun. I knew there was a reason we were bringing you on today, and it wasn't just to talk about the NFL. But in terms of the Raiders, and I am excited for the wins. What stands out to you about this team, and ultimately, why should we buy in on them now?
Well, I think when you look at the division, there's been so much fanfare about Russell Wilson going to Denver, justifiably so. He's a guy that's led a team to 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1. You look at Kansas City, anytime Patrick Mahomes is involved in anything, that's going to get notoriety. It's going to be the topic of shows. And then the Chargers. I mean, Justin Herbert's, one of the top 2 or 3 up-and-coming young quarterbacks. They've made some offseason moves to solidify their defense. And yet it's the Raiders that were in the playoffs last year, not the Broncos, not the Chargers. And they went out and added the best wide receiver in the National Football League in Devontae Adams, and they added Chandler Jones to that defensive line to go with Max Crosby. So if you're just talking under radar, great value, I think it's the Raiders. I mean, they're literally going to line up in week 1 and have the best wide receiver in football, one of the top 4 tight ends in football, one of the top 5, 6 slot receivers in Hunter Renfrow, and Carr, he's a top half of the league quarterback. So, I think there's a lot of value there. I think Russell's talented, but maybe it takes a little more time for Denver to put all the pieces together. Who knows if Kansas City's really Kansas City without Cheetah? Like, Patrick Mahomes is great, but from a defensive, schematic standpoint, you have to game plan differently when they have an asset like Tyreek Hill. You have to account for him no matter where he's at. You have to give him attention. So that makes everybody else better. Now that he's gone, I mean, we'll see. I'm not doubting Andy Reid. I'm not doubting Patrick Mahomes, but I'm saying I think there's, a level of doubt there. And the Chargers still have one of the I don't really know the adjective used for him, but I mean, their coach probably can decide if they win 4 or 5 games. I mean, who knows when he's going to be backed up on his own 1-yard line and go for it on 4th down, 2 minutes into the game. So, Brandon Staley being Brandon Staley, I mean, Josh McDaniels, second go-round, really talented offense, great defensive line. I think Las Vegas is plus 750 or something to just win a division. I think there's a lot of value there.
That was a great breakdown. I tend to agree with every single point you made. I'm glad you brought up the coaching change too, because they made the playoffs last year with an interim head coach. And in general, the leadership that Carr has shown throughout his tenure, kind of keeping that team together as they changed cities. And then in particular, and in the turmoil that they had in that locker room last year to get that team to the playoffs was pretty outstanding and not really very well covered, I didn't think. You had mentioned Carr as a top half of the league quarterback. What is his ceiling though? Like, what is he like? Do we have to get kind of a top 10 performance out of him for the Raiders to win this division, considering how competitive it is?
So here's what's interesting. I think I have guards like Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins in the top half of the league, but I think we've seen what and who they are. I don't know if they have a whole lot of upside. I also have guys like Carson Wentz in the top half of the league, and he gets a lot of criticism. I know we're gonna get the Commanders later, but the difference between him, Carr, and Cousins, I think Wentz still has upside. I don't think we've seen his best football, but Carr's proven that his best football is playoff caliber. So, if you're talking Raiders will make the playoffs, then I mean, why not take a shot on them to win the division?
I want to I was going to just make a quick comment here about the Kansas City Chiefs and how tough it is obviously being in their division. But I think a good point is that Tyreek Hill, and as you alluded to, obviously he's gone out to Miami. Now they're going to get involved with Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS, which is not the same caliber. as Tyreek Hill, no matter what. It's going to be an interesting team to follow. But I kind of like the Raiders too, strictly because of everything you said. And plus 650, they were 10-1 to win the division a few months ago. So a lot of money has now come in on Las Vegas. But let's head over to the Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that Drew and I have talked about just a little bit over the last couple of months, mainly because of the quarterback situation and Matt Ryan and kind of what we make of him and what he will bring to this team. And obviously, the public and a lot of bettors ultimately think that there's going to be a step up here. 9.5 wins is their total. Over is juiced to -155. They're favored -110 to win the division. They have a pretty easy schedule, especially at the beginning, which if you do like their win total or to win them to win the division, now would be the time to get involved. They open with the Texans and the Jags, third easiest schedule, as I said. They have not won the division, though, dating back to 2014, Shaun. What do you think about the Colts and what should we expect from them?
Well, great offensive line, tremendously talented running back. And the only thing that scares you is that's probably the only areas they're elite on offense.
Yeah.
Now, it's weird where I think 2 trades happened and both teams got better. But I think this is one of those situations. I think Matt Ryan and his consistency is a better fit for what the Colts want to do. And I think Carson Wentz's upside is a better fit for what the Commanders want to do. So I do think, just from an intangible standpoint, that Matt Ryan will bring a unique confidence to Indianapolis. You know, the interesting point for me is they kind of got a pass last year because Houston and Jacksonville were so bad. Mm-hmm. You know, now that Doug Peterson is in Jacksonville, they've upgraded that front. They added Trayvon Walker. They added the linebacker from Utah, who I really love. And they already had the linebacker from Kentucky. I'm drawing a blank on his name. That team's going to be a lot better. You know, people say what you want, but, you know, I've talked to people on the Houston staff. They really think Davis Mills is going to have a breakout year. Now, I'm not saying this is going to get in the way of anything Indianapolis has going, but I'm saying the division is a lot tougher than people think, and especially last year. So I do think Indianapolis is a team to watch. I wouldn't take them at that price because at the end of the day, if Derrick Henry stays hard and, you know, you get regular season Ryan Tannehill, you know, even though the A.J. Brown is gone, Tennessee is going to be like a force to reckon with, especially in the regular season. So, you know, I just don't think there's a lot of value there with the Colts, but I do think they're a really good team, and I do think Matt Ryan enhances them more so than Carson Wentz did.
Okay, yeah. I, again, agree with all your points. And, you know, even though they got a pass against Jacksonville last year, if they beat Jacksonville last week of the season, they go to the playoffs. So, you know, it still is a very
tough loss,
line.
Man. You lose
the
Urban Meyer, man. That's a tough loss.
To you. But yeah, in general, the Colts look, to me at least, like a well-priced team. Like, they're going to make the playoffs. They're not going anywhere, though. Like, this isn't a team that you expect can go toe-to-toe with the elite offenses in the AFC once it gets to the playoffs.
Safe to say not a buy now, 12-1.
For me, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We saw the Tennessee Titans race out and get the number 1 overall seed last year in the AFC. What good did that do them? Not much. It was very tough to extract value on that ticket, even if you got them at the bottom of the market. You still needed them to beat the Bengals and get to the next round of the playoffs if you were going to try to get any value there, and you didn't. So tough for me to say the same exact thing wouldn't happen with the Colts. And, you know, they could be a one and done, even if they get the number 1 seed, which isn't crazy considering how easy their schedule is. What do you make of one of the more buzzy teams from Sara's neck of the woods? A team that I think a lot of people feel is primed for a comeback, considering who they're getting back from injury, namely, you know, one of the most dynamic athletes in the NFL with Lamar Jackson behind under center there. The Baltimore Ravens are catching steam because people expect that the Browns aren't going to be quite as good as advertised, and there could be a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover for the Cincinnati Bengals. Are you in the mindset that the Ravens are due for a bounce back season?
Well, I think when you look at that division, and sorry, Sara, I hate to go against you. I think Pittsburgh's got more value than Baltimore. I mean, because unless Rashad Bateman is the next coming of Michael Irvin, I mean, Lamar Jackson going to be playing killer carrier. For you guys that don't know, that's a Southern game where you throw the ball up in the air and you catch it yourself. and then you go try and run and score because, I mean, they were already devoid of elite assets at the wide receiver position, and then you get rid of Hollywood Brown, although I thought it was a good trade long term. For the short term, I just don't know who is he throwing the ball to?
Yeah, Rashad Bateman.
Right.
I mean, seriously,
Rashad Bateman had been able to stay healthy. And when's the last time a moderately fast Big Ten wide receiver proved to be elite or capable of being the number one guy in the NFL? I mean, that conference just hadn't really produced like non-elite talented guys at that position.
I guess I'm so high and higher, and I guess like a lot of people in the Baltimore Ravens, strictly because of their running game and the guys coming off injury. Not to mention, yeah, we talk about Rashad Bateman and the step he needs to take up, obviously. It's not like Marquise Brown had a ton of success. I would say he was more of a distraction for defensive purposes. He didn't really have a ton of big plays nor touchdowns last year for the Ravens. Mark Andrews, by the way, 1,300 yards last season, one of the best.
Good tight end.
Yeah, really an incredible tight end. But just thinking about the players returning for the Baltimore Ravens and why I think they're a buy now, and we kind of touched on it. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, obviously Lamar coming back from injury, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Ronnie Stanley, and then, of course, I like their addition with their new safety coming out of Notre Dame and Hamilton. So, and their head coach, obviously. Love to back him anyway. 9.5 wins, though. Now you're looking at taking the over. It's minus 155. But I'm high on the Ravens. I've certainly talked about it a lot on this show. But Drew, I actually am curious for your opinion on the Baltimore Ravens, if you would buy in on them now, not necessarily low. I mean, they have caught a lot of steam as of late, but 11-1 to win the AFC and plus 165 to win the AFC North.
I have questions about their playoff, their ability to go toe to toe offensively with some of the other elite teams. We kind of the case we made for why not to bet on the Colts, I feel like is pretty similar for why not to bet on the Baltimore Ravens. Even if they win the North, even if they get a home game, round one of the playoffs, are they good enough to get the 1 seed in the AFC? No, not in my opinion, no. And then are they good enough to go score for score with the likes of the Bills, Chiefs, or even Bengals in the playoffs? And to that answer, that question, I say no as well. Now, if Lamar Jackson is MVP form, then, you can put this clip this segment and, shove it in my face. If you're a Ravens fan, that's fine. But realistically, I think there is a little bit too much that you were putting on his shoulders if you're trying to get him to score 30 games in a playoff, get him score 30 points in a playoff game against the likes of some of these other elite offenses.
And Drew and Sara, I want to be on record as saying, I think Lamar Jackson is an amazing talent. I just think he always gets a raw deal. He's one of the one elite quarterbacks that nobody talks about or puts pressure on the organization to surround him with better talent. Like, who knows how good Lamar could be if he actually got elite players on his side of the football. And listen, I love Kyle Hamilton, but the Ravens didn't need a safety. They already have 2 really, really good ones. So I'm fascinated to figure out how they play the game with 3. And then you got the Bengals sitting there who, I don't know how you can make a Super Bowl and have a chip on your shoulder the following year, but they're sitting there like, no one's talking about us. We upgraded the one part of our team that was a huge deficiency, which is the offensive line.
Definitely.
And we pretty much have everything else coming back. So, we'll see how it works. And say what you want about Pittsburgh. I think Trubisky's going to have a bounce back year. I think any Mike Tomlin coach team is always going to be top 12 defensively. And Najee Harris is emerging as one of the elite running backs. And even though they don't have Juju Smith-Schuster, they still have Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. So, they have talent. So, I just think it's a very, very competitive division. And listen, I think the reason that we're not going to delve into this conversation, but I think the reason that the NFL allowed, we want to suspend him from a year indefinitely to get out there publicly, is so that when a shorter suspension is announced, they can say that, this is what we wanted, but it's all collectively bargained with the players union, and this is what we agreed to as a compromise.
Yeah, that makes sense. One last thought about the Ravens on draft day. So a lot of people kind of glowing about their draft because they got so many players that were graded higher on the draft boards than their slot they ultimately got. They picked Hamilton being kind of the prime example.
Sure.
And they traded away Brown on day one of the draft,
who was already in Arizona, so obviously he knew.
He knew, yeah. That was not a surprise, I don't think. But at the same time, a team like the Eagles brought in AJ Brown, and like that player fits so well with what Lamar Jackson's strengths are and what you can do, particularly with play action. If you have AJ Brown running the slant across the middle, who's just always open on that play. And I feel like they needed to be a little bit less kind of cutesy and kind of getting the best value from everyone, and maybe a little bit more aggressive in a market for getting a top tier wide receiver to put on that roster.
Yeah, maybe an argument that they kind of drafted for the future. Maybe this next season or the season following compared to this season. I understand it. I'm not high on the Pittsburgh Steelers, Shaun, but certainly I do understand where you are coming from. Obviously, the best or biggest number, rather, 8-1 to win the AFC North. So if you like them and you think Mitch Trubisky's going to have a big year for them, then ultimately get involved. That's a really juicy price in an extremely competitive AFC North. We're going to get to the NFC in just a minute, but a reminder that weekends are better with MLB Sunday leadoff coverage presented by Uber Eats. Catch the Angels take on the Orioles in Baltimore on Sunday, July 10th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, live on NBC and Peacock. To learn more, go to peacocktv.com/MLB. And if you want a chance to win $25,000 on the game, download the NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet and enter Sunday's free Grand Slam Pick'em contest. I know Drew will be involved. He's always involved in the Grand Slam Pick'em, yet to win. But Drew, this is your weekend to get it done. Like I said, we're going to head over to the NFC, and there are a few teams that you mentioned, Shaun, and I'm going to begin with the Commanders because you talked about, obviously, a good trade happening for Carson Wentz now heading over to Washington. Their win total is 7.5. They're plus 475 to win the division, 33-1 to win the NFC. Certainly, if you want to buy low, this would be the spot, right? Not a lot of believers in Carson Wentz. What do you make of him on the Washington Commanders, and is this a team we should buy in on?
And in my Charles Barkley voice, guarantee they are winning more than 7.5 games. Carson Wentz is a humongous upgrade over Taylor Heinicke. You get Chase Young coming back off of an underachieving year where he will feel like he needs to go out and reassert himself. Whereas last year you got him coming off of all the parades, all the awards, feeling like he had arrived. So you're going to get a motivated defensive front. My boy Warren Sapp went down there, dropped some gems. I'm just telling you, I love the Commanders. I think they have a legit shot to win the NFC East. I'm selling everything Eagles, and I'm buying everything Redskins. No, I mean Washington football team. No, I mean Commanders. I'm going to have all three generations of paraphernalia. I am all in on the Commanders.
That's a decent price at plus 4.
We're going head to head on that one, Shaun. I'm not getting involved with anything Washington, and I will be on the record saying that. And if I'm wrong, you can clip it.
Who do you like, Sara?
I like the Eagles.
So let me explain something to you. Jay-Z came out with a song. I think it's called Hollywood. And he said the most difficult thing in the world is when you look in the mirror and you feel like you've arrived. And that's the problem with the Eagles. None of those guys have ever done anything of substance during the actual season. And yet people have already anointed them as this year's team. That's a very difficult mindset to come into the season under, because you take things for granted. If you go and look at some of the comments coming out of Eagles camp, oh, this is as good as we've ever looked. We're ready to take over the world. We're going to be unstoppable. I always sell that product because that product doesn't work the first year.
I will say I bet into this team, and it is unfortunate because everything I've been seeing on social media and a lot of analytic people I follow in the NFL are all over Philadelphia. And it is not a great feeling because obviously it gets in, players, coaches, I think the mindset of the team. When I bet into the Philadelphia Eagles plus 250, they're now plus 200. This is a team that you could have got 8.5, 9 wins. Now you're looking at 9.5. So much steam is coming on the Eagles. I do agree there's been a lot of smoke and a lot of positive noise coming out before anything has been done on the field. But for the Washington Commanders, for me, I need to see Carson Wentz Wentz and what he could do before I'm backing any team
Can I
led by
say
him,
this?
plain and simple.
Can I say this? You're willing to back a Jalen Hurts-led team,
Correct.
but not a Carson Wentz-led team. This is the most unbelievable evaluation I've seen in NFL in the last decade. Carson Wentz threw 27 touchdowns and 7 picks last year. Now, granted, those 7 picks all made SportsCenter top 5 plays, right? Like they were like, Tom Cruise worthy, Mission Impossible. I mean, it was entertainment at its highest level. But at the end of the year, he was 27-7. Jalen Hurts led the Eagles in rushing attempts, led them in rushing yards, and led them in rushing touchdowns. That's not something that you can duplicate from year to year. And I think without having his stats right in front of me, he was somewhere around 16 and 10 or 16, 13 touchdown interceptions. So I'm saying the Commanders have the more proven commodity at quarterback. And I don't know if Nick Sirianni is going to let Jalen Hurts actually play quarterback. You can't win in this league if your quarterback is leading your team in rushing attempts, rushing yards, and touchdowns. Lamar Jackson got away with it, but he's Michael Vick from a talent standpoint. Jalen Hurts isn't either one of those guys athletically or size-wise or speed-wise. So, I get why people are buying Philly. I love what they did this offseason. I just think the bridge you have to get over from talented team in the NFL to successful team in the NFL is a lot farther than people think.
Yeah, I will. I'm nervous about Philly too. I'm closer to Shaun's point of view here. I don't think they're an afterthought by any stretch of the imagination, but they're going to be a team that is a tough out. That team on your schedule is you're going to be asked a lot every time you face them. But
Philly does have a really easy schedule.
It's easy.
It's easy. It's an easier schedule, but certainly, if you 12-1 to win the NFC, I'm not saying I'm all over that by any means. I did like them to win their division, but Shaun, I guess I'll go to you and then Drew to win the NFC East. If I were to ask you, pick a team, are you sticking with the Commanders as that buy low team and to win their division?
Yeah, I am. The Giants don't have any shot. So, if this was soccer, they'd be relegated to a lower level. They'd be playing the USFL championship this past Sunday. And Dallas, Dallas is an enigma. Who knows? They lost Amari Cooper. They lost the other receiver is hurt. I'm sorry for not being able to call these names, but it was 4th of July yesterday, so there was some high drinking.
Michael Gallup.
Michael Gallup.
You're in Vegas, 4th of July. I'm just happy you're on the show this early.
Cedric Wilson's not a game changer, but he was a legit, player for them. Didn't they lose the majority of the offensive line? You already know, Tyron Smith, when he's healthy, he's probably the best in the league, but he hadn't played a full season. They went out and drafted a guy from Tulsa that should still be in college. There's no way that you're starting, Tyson Smith, I think is his name. You're not starting him on a team that's winning the division. People said Ezekiel Elliott was old before COVID, and here he is, still getting announced as a starting running back. So, they got some legit issues. The league has a whole year of film on Michael Parsons. And where we've seen Michael Parsons, we've seen him announce in the hockey game. We've seen him sitting ringside at the fights. We've seen him announce in the UFC fighters. I'm not saying don't enjoy your life, big fella, but historically, when you have a big season early in your career in that league and you're on the I want to be in the spotlight circuit, there's generally some regression the following season. So I'm definitely not buying the Cowboys. And listen, I know, Sara, fly, Eagles, fly. I get it. But they got to prove it to Big King. They got to prove it to me. I'm not saying they can't do it, but I'm saying I'm going to sit back and watch it happen.
Yeah. And there's buzz every year around a team that made the playoffs last year from the NFC East that people think is going to make the next step. People were backing Washington football team to win the Super Bowl last year. Like, that was a very popular offseason take last year. And I was like, man, that amount of buzz for a team that, overachieved last year, frankly, is a little scary. Expectations are high. And a lot of the kind of core in the trenches, especially for the Eagles, they are some older players, and expecting those guys to stay healthy with the longer season NFC in general is wide open. I get it, but you're going to need some things to break your way if you're the Eagles, and they're catching a lot of buzz.
Yeah. So one more team, Shaun, that I know you like and you think a time to buy in on them coming out of the NFC South possibly is going to be the New Orleans Saints. And most teams I can make an argument for or against, and I have a read on them. There's two I don't. Minnesota Vikings, over my head, don't know what to make of them. And the New Orleans Saints, honestly, I don't know what to make of Jameis Winston now. And obviously with the new head coach, and now kind of looking at their win total, sitting at 8.5, they're plus 375 to win the division. And if you want to go as far as looking at them to come out of the NFC, 20-1. I mentioned Jameis Winston coming back from tearing his ACL and leading this team. And I love following his workout and training videos. I do. But as it comes to betting this team, what do you make of them? And ultimately, how should we attack them in the market if we're going to buy low on them?
I mean, I feel like you have to buy stock in the Saints. Like, I feel like I'm giving you crypto when it was $150. And you got to get it. Like, it's going to get to 60,000. Trust me. Like, that's how high I am on the Saints. The Saints went 9-8 last year without Michael Thomas and without Jameis Winston for the majority of the year. Now, the reason the stock has so much value is because there's no Sean Payton. So for years, people have trusted the Saints because of Sean Payton, but that's really the only change. Like, the great thing is they promoted from within. They maintained a lot of stability on the staff for the most part. And you get Jameis back in what's basically a contract year. And Michael Thomas is playing. And you drafted Chris Olave, who I don't think had the biggest upside in the draft, but I did think he was a guy that was plug and play ready because he's a technician. His route running is elite. You still have Alvin Kamara in the backfield, and the Saints are going to be tremendous on defense. I just think at some point, and I'm a Bucs fan, you guys know that, boom, boom, boom. I love when those cannons go shooting off in Raymond James. But I saw what Brady looked like when that offensive line was decimated with injury in the Rams game in the playoffs. Now you lose both guards. I mean, at some point, Tom Terrific gets old. Is it this year? Is it because the offensive line in front of him has weaknesses? I mean, basically the Falcons are taking a punt because they signed Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota had one group of plays for the Raiders last year. The first play he got in the game, he got hurt every time. So there's no way he's going to line up and play 80 snaps for more than 3 weeks. And then when we're going to put Felipe Franks in the game, I mean, we're going to put Desmond Ridder. I mean, the Falcons have punted. The Panthers, I think Matt Rule is a good coach, but I think the ship has sailed in Carolina. I don't think the players believe in Rule, so that's a tough spot to be in because they know he's not going to be there. So now we're just talking about, okay, the Bucs and the Saints. So why not the Saints? People forget this about Jameis. You look at Jameis's career stats. He's not a bust as a number one pick. And he did throw for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. I know he threw 33 touchdowns, I think. I know he threw a whole lot of picks, but the talent is there. And the pieces around him are there. So I think there's a lot of value on the Saints. A lot.
Shaun and I are reading from the same cheat sheet today.
Yes, you guys are.
I could not agree with this take more. And I can only add to this that the Saints start their season at the Falcons, which we agree is a bye. That's a win for them. They host the Buccaneers, who go to New Orleans and play awful for whatever reason. The Bucs go to
always
Big
struggle
Easy,
there.
and they can't put together a solid.
Saints have beaten the Bucs in 4 straight regular season games. They have their numbers certainly.
And then they're at the Panthers. So you start your season with 3 divisional games. You should be 3-0 realistically after those 3 games. And the Buccaneers, they may start 0-4. The Buccaneers' schedule to start the season is very, very challenging. At Cowboys, at Saints, hosting Packers, hosting Chiefs. You could be looking at, a 3-0 team in division that is, with the Buccaneers 0-3 potentially at, just before you even get to the month of October. You're going to capture a lot of value if you buy low on the Saints right now.
The only cold water I could throw on the Saints is Alvin Kamara. What will happen with him if he ends up being suspended? Their backup is Mark Ingram, TBD, but Jarvis Landry added regardless of Michael Thomas. Hopefully he's okay. New head coach Dennis Allen replacing Sean Payton. You guys have actually convinced me to buy in on the New Orleans Saints, and I'm not just saying that. Looking at their win total, 8.5, seems like a good play to the over. It's -105. Maybe taking a shot at the +375 to see if they can beat Tom Brady and the Bucs and win that division is a juicy look, a team to buy low on.
Again,
Shaun,
realistically, they'll be favorites to win the division by the end of September. That's not crazy.
You can get a better number, yes.
And honestly, the Kamara suspension, I think, will come, and he will miss time at the beginning of the season. But this any kind of enthusiasm on the Saints is basically banking on Jameis Winston coming back off of the ACL and being anywhere close to the player we saw last year, which was
remember,
very good. Yeah,
Kamara hasn't been a thorn in their side. That hasn't been a story that's even come up again in recent, history. So unlike Deshaun, where that thing keeps gaining layers and creating more attention, Kamara's kind of flew under the radar, so he could very easily get just 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, well, let's keep an eye on it. Bucs have a really hard schedule. The favorite now, and with the Saints starting off easy, this might be the time to get the best number for the New Orleans Saints. Shaun, we very much appreciate you joining the show today for all of your insight. Teams to buy in on now, both in the AFC and NFC. In the meantime, if you're listening and watching, follow Shaun on Twitter at @RealShaunKing. Make sure to check him out with Tim Murray. He hosts the Nightcap weeknights on VSiN. So, Shaun, thank you again. Have a great rest of your day. Look forward to DMing you for all of your winning picks.
Come let the doctor cure you, man. I'm just telling you, we got it. Whatever you need. $1.55, we can make your life change. Come on.
I got to go to Vegas and spend some time with Shaun and make some money. Shaun, thank you again. It's a Tuesday. He's bringing Friday energy on the show.
That was great.
I got to get out to Vegas. I feel like
for sure.
Win me some money. He seems like he had a great 4th of July. So, getting a little bit later here into the day and on our show, and that means we give out our edge of the day, our best play. You mentioned off the top you had a tennis look. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so tomorrow morning we have an interesting quarterfinal between Elena Rybakina. Some people call her Rybakina. I think that's a very unflattering pronunciation. Rybakina, much more pleasant. She's taking on Aliyah Tomljanovic. Tomljanovic sounds like Eastern European. She's Australian, and actually formerly dated Nick Kyrgios. Australia tennis's
fun fact.
Super couple there. Anyway, this is a very close match. The market says Rybakina has about a 60% chance to win. I'm closer to 55-45 here. But the important thing is you have 2 relatively inexperienced players at the Grand Slam level who are at a very late stage of this tournament. And what that usually portends is a little bit of tight tennis when the going gets tough. And so whoever wins this first set, getting tight in the second set, and ultimately forcing this into a 3-set match seems entirely plausible. And I think in general, Tomljanovic, who was not great against Rybakina in Madrid on clay, has been playing much better on grass in general. This is her surface to do anything of note. Rybakina has broken out at this tournament, but in general, I don't fancy as a particularly strong grass player. So this is going to be a close one. It's going to go 3. My edge of the day is over 2.5 sets at +140 if you can find it. If you can't, the game's over at 21.5 is a fair play as well.
Okay, rooting for this to go 3 sets and the plus money. We do have a viewer question coming in right now for your tennis handicap. It's actually a great question, Scott, and I'm happy you asked it because I'm also now very much invested in Ons Jabeur. So how do we hedge?
The way this is not a pure hedge. A pure hedge would just be basically find Ons is about as good of a price as you're ever going to get for the outright market. And there are some places like that hang what is called a two-way market, where you basically can bet yes, she will win, or no, she will not, right? And that is the purest way to get a hedge out of a position that you have significant equity on. I am not playing that for what it's worth. I think riding this out is completely realistic at this point. And I think there's really only 2 women in the draw at this point who can win this title. It's Ons Jabeur or it's Simona Halep. And if you want to grab some Simona Halep to win Wimbledon at a decent price, because basically if Ons gets upset before she gets to the final, then all of that equity just washes right into the Halep, the Halep bin. So if you want to cover any kind of staking on Ons, I would just back Halep to win Wimbledon instead of trying to find a pure hedge.
What are the odds right now for Halep to win Wimbledon?
I think 3-to-1-ish is available out there.
Okay.
Most of the markets come down when action is live, and right now there is no women's tennis live. So
1+175 on PointsBet right now.
Yeah, they're a little bit more aggressive because they're smart, and the futures book is well priced. Realistically, I think you can get better than 2-to-1 out there on Halep to win Wimbledon, and that's a fun way to cover any stake on Jabeur.
Okay, that's a great way, and noted for obviously not just our viewer and listener Scott, but also for myself, as we are on Jabeur backers on this show. My edge of the day, going to golf, and maybe Shaun King's energy came on and is putting me on a winning spell. I sure hope so. I'm going to get involved in the Scottish Open. And the field, by the way, is pretty absurd. It's ridiculously loaded. And I'm curious to hear what you make of my play. I have some friends and sharper handicappers in the golf space, and a name that stuck out to them and then myself was Will Zalatoris at 28-1. I think because of the loaded field, it offers some value in the outright market. I think his first PGA Tour win is coming. He's been in incredible form. Look what he's done as of late. He's finished 6th or better in 6 of his last 8 starts. More importantly, he's finished runner-up in the past 2 majors, and I think the slower greens this week at the Renaissance Club can help him. So 28-1 for Will Zalatoris, a guy that you've certainly talked about quite a few times throughout the last couple of months on our show. To win the Scottish Open is my play. Big number.
Well, he's definitely coming in top 20. That's all he does at these tournaments is finish top 20. Tied second feels like maybe standalone second. But no, I'm just kidding. Will Zalatoris get that first title. I think he's also very live for the Open proper at St. Andrews.
Get an even better form. He's in good form, and just get an even better form for St. Andrews, hopefully.
Weather looks beautiful. Love watching some links golf. This is going to be 2 fun weeks over in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate everyone joining us today on this Tuesday here on Bet the Edge. We are going to be back on Friday with myself and Drew. Jerry Coucher is going to come on, and Von Delzell, and we'll do a whole weekend preview and exactly what we are betting. But thank you for joining our NFL Teams to Buy Low on Now preview for today. And of course, we got some picks for the weekend, and even tomorrow on the tennis space. I have one thing to end with. Let's go Ons Jabeur coming up here in a little bit.
Yes.
For Drew Dinsick, I'm Sara Perlman. Thank you for being here on Bet the Edge. We'll see you guys back here on Friday.